Abraham, I'm wondering if you could speak to us a little bit. I know myself, when my awareness hears the pencil in the fan and I look to see what that cause is,
Yes.
it's a belief about being bound by rules.
Yes.
And normally it's someone else breaking the rules
Yes.
that gets away with it. And if I try to do the same thing, it doesn't work. How do we release that belief?
Well,
that
it
we're
helps to
bound?
know. Can you give us an example of someone breaking a rule and getting away with it and you trying it? Let us give you something that's quite funny about this. Esther runs around with no shoes on all the time, in and out of hotels. She wears them through the airports, but that's about the only public place. In other words, is when she's in a hotel, she thinks she's home. Recently, a few days ago in Detroit, Esther is on the elevator and she reads a sign that she has not seen before, presented in such a prominent place, that says proper attire must be worn throughout the hotel, which means shirts and shoes and cover-ups and so on. And so as Esther is riding up and down in the elevator, she reads this sign a few times. And then she muses over it. She spends 17 seconds and 17 seconds and 17 seconds. And she concludes, well, it isn't really so important to them that we wear shoes, but if we were to hurt our foot or something, and then we were want to challenge them about having something there that would hurt our foot, then they have this rule that says, well, you have already broken our rule by not wearing shoes, and so now you have no recourse about. And so her mind has played through all of this. Now, Esther has been walking through hotels for nearly 10 years without shoes on. Only this week did she speculate on this subject, and today the man caught her and said, you have to put shoes on. And Esther laughed because Jerry was with her when he stopped her, and Esther said, my shoes are in the room, I'll go get them now. And Jerry said, how in the world did that man from over there even know that you did not have shoes on? How in the world? And Esther said, because my feet were electric lights. She said, I shined a spotlight on them for several minutes riding up and down the elevator in Detroit. I thought about this. I came to conclusions. You getting the sense of what we're talking about? In other words, everything is about law of attraction. And when you hold something as your object of attention, it's like shining a light on it so that then other things come to it. So, Esther's been breaking the rules for years and getting away with it until she read something that caused her to focus upon it as a rule that was being broken. In other words, there are thousands of laws that you don't know about, and because you don't know about them and don't push against them, they do not affect you. But if someone were to bring them to your attention and you were to get irritated about it and begin pushing against it, you would begin shining a spotlight and you would get into trouble over that all over the place. So, the words that we want you to hear, everyone gets exactly what they deserve. And what that means is everybody gets exactly what they are radiating. Every time, no exception. So once you get that, then it starts to clear up all those mysteries, doesn't it? How do people do bad things like rob banks and all kinds of things and not get caught? In other words, how does it happen? And it has to do with the way they've aligned their energies. There are little children that are taught almost from birth to steal. And they are praised for it. The better they steal, the more praise they receive from those that are around them. And so their corks float while they steal. So you say, well, Abraham, are you promoting theft? And we say, we are promoting corks floating. We're promoting getting into vibrational, in other words, physical beings keep wanting Abraham and others to say, these things are right and these things are wrong. And if you do these things, good things happen to you. And if you do these things, bad things happen to you. But you see the struggle you've had in that one.
Exactly.
Your law says you should not kill. And then another law says, come and kill for us. We need you. And you say, but I believe I should not kill. And they say, but you must come and kill. We need you to come and kill. In fact, if you don't kill, we'll kill you. Or we'll put you into incarceration. And so, bless your hearts, how do you ever sort that out? How do you ever decide what's right or wrong in anything? And we say the way to know it is your guidance system always lets you know what's appropriate or inappropriate in this moment, given the energy that is your source and the moment and time in which you stand.
Thank you.
You want to talk about something specific?
Basically, I think it's something that came from childhood, that if you followed the rules, then you were good. If you broke the rules, then you were bad.
Now think about where that comes from. So here is a parent or someone who wants to love you, who has these ideas of things that you should do. So when you perform in the way that they need you to, you please them, and in their being pleased, they flood you with positive energy. But what happens is, then you begin to depend upon their energy as your life support, which means now you've always got to please them. And that's all right when there are two parents that are consistent in what they want from you, and that's all there are. But what happens when you go to school and the teacher is of a different political persuasion? Or what happens when you step out into the larger world and others want from you things? What happens when you meet your mate who has different philosophies than your parents? In other words, how do you can't please even one of them consistently, you see. And that's why we say you have to, and the sooner the better, begin to let the thing that you're striving for is your harmony with your own source. Because when that is your guiding star, in other words, when you're reaching for the thought that allows your cork to float, when you're reaching for the thought that is of the vibration that allows your source energy to flow through, then no matter what else is happening, you are the extension of who you really are. You are the fulfiller of your reason for being. Let's talk about allowing just a little bit, because sometimes people think, as we talk about the law of allowing, people, even after they've listened to us for some time, think that what we're saying by that is you can look at the worst thing and call it good and feel all right about it. And we say, well, that's more like tolerating. In other words, that's more like not wanting it but putting up with it. And that causes a contradiction within you that is very unhealthy. So what allowing is being so much desirous of being in concert with your source energy that you practice thoughts that hold you. You practice setting your own tone. You learn how to vibrate in harmony with who you really are. And then from that place, as you look around into whatever, nothing is ever dominant enough that it drags you away from your source. In other words, you've practiced always being the allower of the God force to flow through you. And since you're so practiced at it, you can then look at things. You see, your inner being sees contrast too. But the difference between your inner being is your inner being sees the contrast and uses it to define what is wanted. Your inner being uses the contrast to help it define where it wants to shine its light, where it wants to look. Where humans often use the contrast to determine what is not wanted. So generally, not always, but always your inner being is looking at the contrast and choosing the yes, while often the human being is looking at the contrast and choosing the no. So you use contrast effectively by yesing from it, looking at it and yesing from it, while contrast turns into resistance as you look at the contrast and you say, no, don't want that, don't want that. And the physical orientation, because of your observation of what is more prone to say, no, don't. There's a war against cancer, a war against drugs, a war against AIDS, a war against teenage pregnancy, a war against violence, a war against a war, and all those things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because what people don't realize is even though they're shouting no at it, they are contributing to it. They are shining a spotlight on it. They are making it part of their experience. They are adding energy to it, you see. So it is satisfying beyond description when you finally say, oh, all of it is allowed. In other words, it's like being a chef in a well-stocked kitchen. you have every ingredient imaginable, and you say, from all of these ingredients, I think I would like to make an apple pie. So you choose the flour and the shortening and the salt and the sugar and the cinnamon and the apples and the water, and you put together this delightful apple pie. And then you look around and you say, there's Tabasco sauce in this kitchen. Ugh, Tabasco sauce has no place in my pie. And the only thing I want to eat are apple pies, you say. And so we should eradicate Tabasco sauce from the kitchen because it might end up in my pie. You know, if we leave it around here long enough, sooner or later, it's going to get into my pie. And then you join together in groups against Tabasco sauce. We must defeat the Tabasco sauce. We must defeat the Tabasco sauce. And we say, just don't put it in your pie. But don't ask everybody else to keep it out of their pies. In other words, they might want it in their pie. They're not going to make you eat their pie. You get to eat the pie that you make, you see. You make your own pies.